It is a brand new edition, a Monday edition of Flyers Daily, presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live as the Flyers conclude what was a very, very busy weekend and very difficult weekend of hockey and week of hockey. To join to talk about that and much more from PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com, and HockeyBuzz.com, it is Bill Meltzer. Bill, the Gauntlet has delivered. It's been everything we kind of built it up to be and more. And frankly, the Flyers gotten some points out of it, and for that, they should be happy. But they did leave some on the table, and goaltending kind of undid them a little bit last night.
No, for sure. Going into the back-to-back against Boston and against Florida, if you said they're going to hold Boston and the Panthers to a combined 34 shots over the two games, you take that every time, right? I thought the Flyers put together two pretty good games, actually two really good games overall. The Florida game, they couldn't get a power play goal going, particularly in that first period. You had three chances, you couldn't pot one of those. That hurt them. They missed a couple of open nets with either a chance to pull back within one a couple of times. So there were some opportunities there. Give Anthony Stolarz a world of credit. Stoley was really good for Florida on Sunday. The thing is, and you've said it, and I've agreed with you, there's no moral victories this time of year. When the Flyers got absolutely no help from Winnipeg. So you have, the Capitals won on Sunday, and now, now the Flyers are really looking at some games they really need to win. They need points. Now they still have one more game head-to-head against the Capitals, so they're still kind of control their own destiny here. But, you have to win these games. It's simple as that. You can't get too high or too low even down the stretch. We're all feeling great on Saturday, and then Sunday, can't feel too bad for yourself either. You just got to keep rolling. Simple as that.
Bill, I take that game against Florida, and I take that process right into New York on Tuesday.
Yep.
I thought they played. Matter of fact, the first two periods against Boston, there wasn't an inch of ice that wasn't contested by either team. I thought both teams structurally, puck support, players being on the right side of the puck. In the first two periods, it was choking. And then in the third period, the Flyers played a really good third period, played a good third period against Carolina as well. Mm-hmm. And then I thought the process in the game against Florida was very good. Like you said, Anthony Stolarz played great. Yeah. And it's the confluence of the two things. The fact that the opposition goaltender was fantastic and yours left a lot to be desired.
Yeah.
And I got to give John Tortorella some credit because he was asked about Felix and Sandstrom postgame, and he didn't utter a syllable. And he knew the best thing to do was not to answer that question at that time with the emotion and what he was feeling, because it would not have been beneficial to anyone.
That spoke volumes, right? Spoke volumes by not uttering a syllable. What could you say?
Yeah, what's he gonna say? We need a save. Well, no,
you need saves. Yeah, it's simple as that. You need some saves. All three of them are stoppable. Now, listen, Tarasenko and Reinhart, they scored a lot of goals. They're guys who make a living scoring goals, but those particular chances, they're not. I wouldn't say they're easy saves, but they're certainly not. They certainly were not unstoppable.
All three are clear-sighted too.
All three clear-sighted, and from enough distance where you're on your angle, you make the save. And then the third one off the glove. That's just a killer where you're because then otherwise you're one bounce away from you need better than that. Period. It's simple as that. When sometimes you talk about you get goalied in a game, well, it was in both ways. It's a two-way door there because Stolarz is really good, and I feel for Felix. I know no one feels worse than him, but the truth of the matter is that after I think five appearances now with the Flyers, an 823 save percentage, and that's not going to get it done in any league anywhere. Simple as that.
Yeah, it's been, when Carter Hart left the team, that was a huge strength, and it's not the strength that it was. And I guess you could have gone back to Ersson on Sunday It was something I thought quite a bit about and talked about it on yesterday's episode.
Right.
Ersson coming off a 20-shot, 18-save performance against Boston didn't appear to be a very heavy workload exertion game for him, but it also is 3-4, 4-6, and the best way to get athletes hurt in pro sports is to play them when in tired situations.
Yeah.
And if you lose him, I mean, you are dunzo.
Yeah. No,
Can't
for
risk
sure.
it.
For sure. And whoever your backup is, I don't care who your backup is, right? Whether it's Cal Peterson or Felix Sandstrom, pick a guy up off of waivers, whatever. They're in the NHL for a reason. You need some saves. Period. We're not saying, you're not even saying it has to be spectacular. It has to stand on its head. You just need some makeable saves to get made, and they haven't gotten it several times. And it's really simple as that.
Let me fall on my sword. Allow me to fall on my sword here for a second, Bill. I tweeted out during the game. I watched that second period right at the Zamboni entrance along the glass and watched that period in the goaltending of Anthony Stolarz very closely. I was very critical of his game when he was here and beyond. And I call it like I see it, as everybody knows, especially about goaltenders. And I was wrong about him because his numbers are fantastic.
Yeah.
I was worried about his ability to move laterally in battle as a goalie. He has improved those areas to a huge degree. So I put in my tweet, hey, I'll say it. I was wrong about Anthony Stolarz. I go, Stoli 1, Jason 0. He's got a 1-0 lead on me right now. So good on him for doing it. And because I was critical.
Right.
But I'm incredibly impressed with the performance, not only last night, but just overall. He's really
no question. No question. And in Sunday's game, yeah, you're not going to beat you're not going to beat Stoli up high too often. He's so big,
He's enormous.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing too, I mean, the book goes when you get him moving, shoot the puck at his feet sometimes, which is often the book on bigger goalies. And it takes some of those guys sometimes longer to mature. I remember Ben Bishop when he was a young goalie, for
big
example.
Time. Yep, you're absolutely right.
So I mean, and Stoli's worked and really improved. Even some of his years with Anaheim, he had some pretty darn good seasons with them too. So I always not they're playing against you, but when someone who came up, who was drafted by the team, came up through the system, watched them develop through the Phantoms and into, eventually into the NHL. You don't want to see it come at your expense necessarily, but hats off to Stoli because he's developed well and obviously he's having a really good year.
A lot of times I talk about the goalie skating. People go, "What are you talking about? He just stands. They don't skate." Yeah. His skating as a goalie has improved so much, and that is diligence and hard work, and it's edge work and control and all of those things. And he's done a great job. So I was wrong on that one. I'll fall on my sword and take my punishment when needed. Bill, let's talk about this team going forward right now. You have some guys going. I look at some of the numbers going into the game last night, and I see guys that they really need to contribute. Frost in his last 6 games going into the game, 3 goals, 4 assists. Tippett had 3 goals, 6 assists in his last 6 games, and Konechny 3 and 4 as well. They're going to have to rely on those guys down the stretch, but Couturier comes back into the lineup, but he only sees 10 minutes of ice time last night. There was a lot of special teams play early in the Florida game, but where is this going? How does this play out over the next week?
I've been encouraged by what I've seen from Couturier, in the 2 games back. I saw that that Danny went on Snow the goalie was talking about that, and it was really not a deep dark secret that Couturier for a while was less than healthy.
Yep.
Plus when we talked about the heavy minutes he was playing, all the situations he was playing, it was kind of all the pieces were in place to kind of hit the wall right in the second half. That's what happened. I think that in the Boston game and also the Florida game too, I thought there were positives out of Sean Couturier. Hey, if that shot by Couturier doesn't hit the crossbar and goes in, and then it's a 2-1 game going in the third period, I think maybe we're having a different show right now.
Yeah. No doubt about it. Look, in only 10 minutes of ice time, I thought he was extremely effective.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say it didn't feel like 10 minutes because
No.
you noticed him when he was out there.
Yeah, but going forward, I mean, you look at this game, the minutes leader in the game at 27 minutes and 59 seconds is Cam York. I don't think we're surprised by that at this point. But how do you ramp up his minutes? Maybe it's because it was a back-to-back. They kind of monitor it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But you're going to need him down the stretch in these final 10 games to be a factor and to move him into more of a role that is a factor role, especially on draws.
Oh, no question. And we can go back to that Toronto game, and I guess you can run through a thousand hypotheticals. But in the Toronto game, it's a 1-goal game. I believe 1:36 left on the clock. Defensive zone draw. I mean, I certainly noticed who wasn't available to take that draw.
Yep.
And you lost it cleanly. Thankfully, the Flyers blocked 3 shots, and they got a big save from Urson. They were able to close that one out. But yeah, you have those big game on line situations. That's exactly that's to a T where you need Couturier on the ice. I don't know. I think that it will depend on the night, what line is going on a particular night. I think that's the fairest way to do it. Some nights, it'll be the paling line. Some nights it might be Lawton. Quite a bit lately. It's been the Frost Tippett Konechny line. I think you go play by ear to see how it's going that night.
Mm-hmm.
But I think on an average night, I would like to see Couturier playing at least 13, 14 minutes. I mean, that's where I think is kind of where his sweet spot might be right now. But again, I think it depends on the game.
Bill, has there been a player in your experience? I'm going to ask John Tortorella about this on Hockey and Hounds this week. Yeah. Has there been a player in your experience that you see that plays to who he is, doesn't try and be what he's not, and delivers on who he is with consistency of Garnet Hathaway?
No. I mean, he churns out the same game over and over and over and over again.
It's incredible. He's like the Duracell bunny or whatever it is. The Energizer.
No question. No, I mean that's a great question. That's a great question. I have to go back a little bit. I think Joel Otto gave you the same game every single night.
Yeah,
he's going to be good on draws, physical. He knew what worked for him, right? But I mean, you could, it's a relatively small number of players who crank out the same game on an assembly line.
His ceiling in his basement he lives in a ranch.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. There's no stairs in his game.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, what a good role player addition.
Yeah,
to the team, and all the ancillary stuff that comes with it too. Good in the room,
mm-hmm.
Good, all the intangibles too. But just in terms of every single night he's and maybe you've played 4 games in 6 nights. He's still going to play physical, right? Yeah. He's still going to go out and kill penalties for you. You know that he's
going to block shots.
Yeah.
He's going to be
he's going to block shots. Yep. He's going to be a pain in the neck to opposing players. I mean, every single game, and it's it's why he's carved out the career that he's had. And it's nice to have.
It was funny at the first intermission of the game last night. I had him as a guest, and he came into the room. And my first question was, 3 games in 4 days, 4 games in 6 days. You're a player that can provide a team energy in these very congested segments of the schedule. And he said, "Thanks." That's all he said. Yeah. I'm like, all right, on to the second question. I was surprised because Garney can talk the ears off a brass monkey, which he did. He went on to do it in his next question, but I thought that was pretty funny that he did that. But yeah, I think he's a guy that just knows exactly who he is as a player, doesn't pretend to be something else, and he is predictable in what he's going to bring, and it's a high level of intensity and forechecking as well. So one of the things, Bill, this week, you got to avoid against human nature this week. And I think it's difficult. We've made a lot about this 7 games against the Gauntlet, which will wrap up Tuesday in New York against the Rangers. But you got to make sure that Montreal and Chicago are not overlooked and you do not let off the gas pedal, because at this time of year, those teams will cost you. Look at last year. That Chicago team last year ends up beating Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, costing them dearly. A playoff
those
spot.
yeah, those are very dangerous games.
They are,
Um,
especially coming out of a run of 7 straight like this.
yeah, you go in sometimes, and it's not that you're consciously taking it lightly, but by the same token, you don't bring the same fight for every inch of the ice intensity. That the game against the Bruins, as you said, for 2 periods, that was a playoff game. That was so tight checking. There was no room out there,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to be super patient. And sometimes in those games where if you don't put a couple on the board pretty early, or at least one, all of a sudden you start getting frustrated.
Yep.
You shoot one to a shin pad, all of a sudden it's a 2-on-1 the other way with a guy like Bedard attacking you. And next thing you know, it's in the net. These games can unravel on you sometimes, right? And the Flyers have to look no further than Lehigh Valley. Phantoms came into this weekend, in fantastic shape. And they played the worst team in the league, and they lost 2-1 on Saturday. A game they had no business losing, they lost. Can just happens at every level. Happens at every level that you've. This is a team that you ought to beat, that you usually beat. But they have no pressure on them. They have guys that are playing for jobs, playing for contracts, playing for whatever. It's different. It can be tough, unless you really, bear down and make sure of it. You find yourself getting 1 point instead of 2, or it ends up you win, but it's really ugly game, and that can carry over.
Yeah.
Beyond that too, you really have to make sure you keep playing the right way, keep churning.
Yeah. I mean, I look at the Carolina game, which they end up losing in overtime, and then that Boston win. I mean, you're talking about 2 of the top teams in the NHL in both result, process, structure. Carolina's such a good possession team, and you play those teams so tight. And if you don't go in with that same process this time of year, a team like that will bite you. And you got to guard against that human nature. I'm sure Torts is going to mention that this week, that he's scared to death of those games.
Yeah.
And that's his way, I think, of messaging to his team to dial it in for those as well. But you got to make sure you don't want to go 2 steps forward and then 3 steps back in games that you should win. Bill, we saw in that Boston game, the Flyers have the lead, Boston ties it. Flyers have the lead, Boston ties it. And then Tyson Forster on the off wing. I said on the radio that was Mark Recchi on the other side of the ice. The way he got it from his backhand to his forehand. And I've been screaming. I've been the old guy yelling all year, shoot the puck, we hear fans on the power, shoot! I yell it when Tyson Forster gets the puck inside the offensive blue line. And we see what that shot is. He's now got 18 goals. The only rookie that's got more goals than him is the aforementioned Connor Bedard. He's going to be a 30-goal scorer in this league. If he's got that a little bit of selfishness in him to shoot that puck for an entire season, he's going to get there. It's pretty obvious.
No, for sure. And remember, Forster had 2 pretty long droughts earlier this year.
Started the year with a big one.
Yeah. And I think that as he gains a little more experience, the droughts will get shorter. He'll have more of those hot streaks of 4 and 6 games or whatever. There's always going to be ups and downs. Goal scorers always have their spells where they go a little bit dry and then they score in some bunches again. But it's not hard to picture the guy who who, as you said, can score from the flank. I mean, that was a gorgeous shot, just a pure sniper's goal, off wing, upstairs. That perfect, and obviously so clutch. I mean, it couldn't come at a bigger time. That group of the there's that group of young players, or the guys 25 and younger, who are the guys I think that the Flyers can and need to keep building around.
I think the thing I loved about it is how quickly he got it from his backhand to his forehand and off the toe.
Yeah.
It was just so fast. And the ability to get it from his backhand to his forehand, I think is what gets Ullmark slightly off his mark.
Yeah.
And it's just a beautiful shot. And I think he's a player that doesn't even know how good he is yet. I think that I know his line mates have talked to some guys that play with him, and they're telling him to shoot it because they know that there's a really good shot that he possesses in there. Tuesday against the Rangers, Flyers will be back at it Tuesday night. I want to say this real quick because after the game last night, I had a chance to catch up with a media member that is one of the most knowledgeable hockey guys. He's not known for it, but I had a chance to spend about 20 minutes talking with my old colleague that I work with at WIP, Ray Didinger.
Yes.
He was at the game last night. I know he had dinner with Jimmy and Joe Watson, and he said he was in his suite with Joe and said there was a picture of the original Flyers team, the 1967 team. And he told Joe, I can name every player in that picture. And Joe didn't believe it. And he named every player in that picture. And it was great to catch up with Ray, known as obviously the mayor of football in this town, the Godfather, right? But he's a guy that's a very educated hockey guy as well.
No question. Ray could write about any sport, truthfully, and be knowledgeable. But yeah, Ray is Ray absolutely knows his hockey. You know, Ray and my father knew each other at Temple. They were both in the journalism department. So
yeah.
So I mean, Ray's a great guy. I saw him briefly actually up in the Flyers alumni suite. Always great to see him.
Yeah, great to see him back. He hasn't been back in a while, but I said to him, I said, don't make yourself a stranger down here. You got to get down here more often. He said, I absolutely will. I enjoyed it. So it was great to catch up with him as well. Late night for us, Bill, so we'll wrap it up there. It's a very important week of Flyers hockey coming up. Tuesday against the New York Rangers. Thursday in Montreal against the Canadiens, and then they'll wrap up the month on yours truly's 30th, on the 30th, on my 52nd birthday. If only I was turning 30, against the Blackhawks, and we'll get our first look in Philadelphia at Connor Bedard. Everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Read Bill's work at PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com, and HockeyBuzz.com. And we'll talk to you tomorrow when we preview Flyers Rangers on a brand new episode of Flyers Daily.